Yeah, I think he might be clearing some turkeys. Oh, it is Blast It or Stash It Friday night. As you notice that Grandpa is not here, I think he got off the wrong bus in Tucson. I think his Alzheimer's kicked in. He may be back next week. We'll see. Once he's done stuffing those turkeys, we'll find out. But in replacement, we have Drew this week. Why don't you go and give us your quote this week, Drew?
First of all, keep him out of the light. He hates bright light, especially sunlight. It'll kill him.
Gremlins.
There you go. Holiday movie.
Come on, I saw that 4 times the first 3 weeks it was out at the theater.
It's Christmas season. I watched it today.
Did you?
Yeah.
My parents would not let me watch that movie when it first came out. They said it's too scary. You can't watch it. I snuck over to a friend's house and watched it anyhow. But
it depends on how old you are. That movie can mess you up.
Yeah, I'm the old man.
Puppet violence in that thing.
And moving on to Paul.
Mine is from 2008, and it's based on a comic book very, very, very loosely. The character says, "Welcome to the fraternity. This gun you're holding belonged to your father. He could conduct a symphony orchestra with it." Yes. I watched that today, too.
I had no clue.
Yeah, that movie's all right.
Yeah. I mean, well, he had that guy, that Russian guy who did Night Watch and Day Watch or whatever, and he's just really crazy with effects, so it was good stuff.
David Hasselhoff. That you're talking about?
Yeah.
Timur Bektir, Russian thing.
Do we know the name of the movie yet? I don't know it.
Wanted.
Oh, Wanted. Sorry. I didn't even hear that. Apparently I need hearing aids. And moving on. I had a different quote written down, but since Drew came in here talking about holiday mood, I think I'm going to go ahead and do a holiday movie. It's one movie I have to watch every single year. And,
Christmas Story.
No, not Christmas Story. Nick ain't doing nothing until Nick gets something from Nick. I want some goddamn hot chocolate. It's a pecan fucking pie.
Bad Santa.
I said a bad word. Oh.
You screamed it too.
I did.
Sounded like something that would be in Bad
I don't
Santa.
know that movie.
No, it has Ben Affleck in it. No?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Reindeer Games.
That's what Drew just said.
Oh, did you see Reindeer Games? I mean, God dang, dude, I am a horrible host tonight. Sorry. I did not hear you say Reindeer Games. This is just getting out of control.
Cutting out.
It might be, or maybe I said maybe this one's not working. I don't know. Okay, before we jump into the books for the week, we got a few people in the chat. Said Spider Grandpa's not here, but apparently he is hiding somewhere in the mop closet and watching the show. Hopefully they don't jump in there and burst in with his pants down.
Hiding in the mop closet. Come on, we know what he's doing in the mop closet.
Yeah, stuffing turkeys. Seeking Near Mint is in here. He's been here since the beginning. And SS Comic says, "What? No Grandpa? Really? Yep, no Grandpa." Bruce A is in here. Mr. Gretzky. And that's all we got going. We have 7 watching right now. And we'll go ahead and jump into Drew. What's your first book for the evening?
Let's go ahead and talk about Super Sons Annual. This is the first annual. Peter J. Tomasi goes into the League of Super Pets. Gives us a glimpse into the life of Crypto and Titus. And they go on a little adventure. And they save some missing dogs from some sort of alien who's trying to liberate them. Cute, it's fun, and definitely in the spirit of Super Sons, and ends with some great banter between Damien and John, and that's how the book starts as well. Definitely gonna stash this along with the rest of the Super Sons series.
What about you, Paul?
It was odd, but quite likable. I especially like that everybody bitch slaps Crypto at least once, and had Detective Chimp in it too. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, that's right. Detective Chimp was in it.
Yeah. And like you said, sometimes it's nice to just have a simple story with no worldly implications that you can sit down and knock out in a few minutes. I loved it.
Yeah, I think a few minutes is right, because when I said in the chat earlier, I said, yeah, you'll be able to read it in like 5 minutes. There's not a whole lot of dialogue going on in here. with both annuals I read this week, most of the time they have a couple small stories versus one long one. And it's like both of them this weekend long stories. I don't know. I didn't like it so much. I just I just like, what the hell is this? I do like the banter between Damien and John. I think that's been the core reason I like this book. It's because of their relationship and how it works. Now, I'll still continue to pick up the regular series, but the annual for me, it's a blast, unfortunately. And Paul,
why do you hate pets?
I don't hate pets. I'm a dog person. I'm not a cat person, that's for sure. I can't stand cats. Hopefully, my wife is not watching right now.
He's a member of PETA. PETA, People Eating Tasty Animals.
Yeah, I am. So let's two stashes in a blast. What's your first book there, Paul? Okay,
let's just do it now. Batman Annual. This was my pick of the week, pick of the month, and probably my pick of the year. I don't want to give too much away because it's one of those books you have to read. But I would put this probably in one of the top 10 Batman stories I've ever read. It was brilliant on every level. For me, it was just perfect. I mean, I after reading that, I couldn't read anything else because I knew I'd be disappointed. It's not your typical Batman story, but I think it gives you a lot of insight into the characters, and it was really emotional. It was really good. Loved it. Stash it.
I'll give a little. I won't give the complete story away, but I'll give a little more away than what you did. So everybody knows that Bruce Wayne has proposed to Catwoman. She said yes. So this kind of goes back into their relationship when they're first kind of interacting with each other. She kept breaking into Wayne Manor. He kept catching her, but not really catching her. She'd leave a clue behind. And he kept asking, "Why are you breaking in?" He says, "To try to find your weaknesses, to make sure." The one thing when I read this, I went, "Oh my God!" Is when
the belt.
The belt. They're talking, and she says, "I'm trying to help you." He says, "I'm trying to help you." And she says, "You are? Are you? Well, then, so am I. Please, no, you shouldn't touch my belt." And apparently, there's a little brown cow in Wayne Manor. In Wayne Manor. Emotional. This book was so emotional for me, and I'll leave it at that too. Like Paul said, you got to read it to be able to get that. Because I don't want to give that away. Part of the book, but this is a stash for me. Definitely stash. Like I said, not your typical Batman story, but good nonetheless. And what do you think of that, Drew?
I have some mixed feelings about. I really love the art. The story as well. I found it to be a really nice, touching tale. It really touches on the humanity of Batman. It really gives him a human side, a soft side, and that's also what I don't like about this book. I have a love-hate relationship with Tom King's Batman. I love the fact that Tom King can go into the psyche of a subject and really break it down to its base model and show its weakness and its softness and its humanity. And this book is riveted with emotion. I found myself, not tearing up, but like being genuinely touched by the story, and that's not a Batman. So overall, as a story, I definitely stash this, but I really can't wait for somebody else to get their hands on Batman, because this Tom King's Batman, I like his individual issues, I like the stories he's telling, but I don't like the way he paints the Dark Knight.
And I think that's where I disagree just a little bit. I do like that human form. I do like showing that a little bit. It makes it a little more relatable than this guy, this big bruiser, just go beating people up.
Plus, I think this is the perfect story for an annual, because it's.
I agree with that.
Sits away from the continuity a little bit,
right? And as far as what we're not spoiling, I'm assuming that's the second part of this book.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't like that being in continuity. I don't know. That's something about that. It's just like, is this?
I don't think it's canon. Put it that way.
Why are we not telling a canon story at this point? I don't know. I just a little bit. some of the nuts and bolts of how this fits in with the rest is kind of, I'm not okay on that.
Now, real quick though, would this could be considered? Oh, now I don't remember the name of the character. Is it that person's first appearance toward the end of the book, or a cameo, or is that?
Are we talking about the final picture, or are we talking about the conversation with the young lady?
The young lady.
Yeah.
I believe that would qualify as a first appearance.
That is alternate universe canon. And I'm not sure why they did that in here, and if they're showing that this isn't something that's going to stick around after said and done, Doomsday Clock's done, and Metal's done. If this is not something that's going to exist anymore, I don't know. But that to me, that character is separate canon. That character is Huntress, Helena, right? And she's a different character in this universe already. She's, Catwoman and Batman's daughter in a different continuity. So I don't know how that comes into play at all. Again, that's one of those things about this book that, like, I really enjoyed this issue. I really enjoyed this story. I thought the art was absolutely perfect for it. Beautifully told. I just don't like how it fits into continuity. You think of it as more of an Elseworld kind of title, too, then? That's how you is that how you're going to take it? Yeah, it's one of those things. I think that if it is something that's canon, like Midwest, something that's canon, it's going to be long dead before it comes to pass anyway. It's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily consider. Well, I guess Elseworlds kind of is DC's What If. So it's it's a potential.
And they're doing the whole thing with the multiverse now. So who knows what goes? Who knows what stays? Who knows what anybody's origin is at this point? It's really muddy. And
in fact,
we won't know until the dust settles.
They specifically bring the multiverse into the story.
He does.
Because he mentions that other guy.
Right. He's like, let's go find another guy. That's a lot of it to me. Just as far as continuity goes, I guess I have to put that on my head because I did enjoy the issue as a whole.
Good. Real quick in the chat, they're kind of talking about a little bit. Seeking Near Men says annual does need to fit in the continuity. Hudat's jumped in here. He says hello. Funkoff says that's why they do annuals. It's just for filler. And that's why I thought with annuals too. It's kind of like maybe let's get a writer and an artist in there that are just kind of up and coming. Let's throw them in this book and kind of get him some breathing room.
Tom King wrote the story, so and he's writing Batman right now. There's no reason to think that the annual doesn't always have to be on a continuity. Sometimes annuals are key issues in continuity.
Wasn't it last year's annual that introduced the character that ended up being in the Batman Shadow crossover?
Yep, that was.
So
and they also did the Ace the Bat Hound stuff too.
Yeah, it's as a self-contained story. It's like I said, it's one of the best Batman stories I've read. As where it fits in a continuity, I agree that there's some question about that.
I don't know. I think it just puts a little stink on it for me. It doesn't let me to enjoy it the way I feel like I should.
Okay.
Stop reading too much into it.
Those were the only two books that all three of us had read. So we'll jump into some other books here. My first book of the night, Paul and I were talking in the off air. She found out this actually was a Kickstarter book back in 2016, written by who? How old was she, Paul?
16, I think.
16 years old. It's Haley Knitz.
16-year-old junior in high school and Girl Scout.
And Jai Knitz. I don't know if that's a relative. I'm assuming that's a relative. And that is Chasing Hitler. So this is kind of an alternate kind of timeline. End of World War II. Japan has already surrendered. They are going in to try to take over Hitler. The story that we know is Hitler killed himself in the bunker. And this story here, he announces that he's going to marry Eva. Yeah. So they get married, and they end up killing everybody that's at the marriage and end up escaping. So that's just basically the story of it. You know, the two guys trying to find Hitler down, they find out there's a hidden bunker and that he's actually escaped. And they're like, oh yeah, game's on. So it actually was a cool story. If you like history and you like alternate timelines, this is probably a good book for you. I think there's 4 issues in this run. I believe this was the only one that was the Kickstarter. The other 3, I think, are published by Red 5 Comics. So if you're into this kind of stuff, definitely pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about it, and you said I think it was a Kickstarter book first, and I looked it up. Apparently, what it was is when she was taking history in high school, her and her father started doing the whole "what if" thing, and what if Hitler got away? And she said, "That's boom," just went from there.
So it amazes me that it was written by a 16-year-old or whatever. But okay, so we'll jump into Drew. What's your next book?
Pick up the mob.
Old Man Logan. I got this really sweet lenticular cover. Just kind of half.
Any further, let's kill these guys.
And half the fight with the Scarlet Samurai. Too much into who the Scarlet Samurai is, but the original Old Man Logan team of Lemire and Sorrentino is long gone. We got the art by Diodato on this, and Ed Brisson is doing the writing. I wasn't last arc, but this right here is really cool. Wolverine cutting up Yakuza in Japan, classic Wolverine stuff, and I really enjoyed it. There's a little bit of intrigue with the Hand and the Silver Samurai, and I like where this story's going. Pretty cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and stash it.
Reading through the chat here. Paul, what's your next book?
My next book was Sword of Ages, and I had some hope for this book, but it just didn't really grab me. For me, the story seemed all over the place with nothing really making a whole lick of sense. I read it through and then flipped through it again, and by the end I was still just confused. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think they're trying to tell too much in the first issue, and they just jump all over the place, and you never get invested in any of the characters or know what the hell is going on. So it just didn't work for me.
I agree with you on that sense, because in the first couple pages is like a saber-tooth. No, it's not. That's spaceship with a giant jellyfish. And then it jumps into saber-tooth tigers. So it was freaking out there. I would say it's almost like a combination of Jungle Book and Game of Thrones, kind of. Because the girl is raised by the saber-tooth tigers. They take her in as her own. You know, she's trained apparently by these tigers and goes to with Man once a year to kind of learn their ways and come back. But she's this really skilled fighter. Maybe I was just really tired when I was trying to read through this book, but I think I'm with you, Paul. I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't get what was going on 100%. It's a blast for me, unfortunately.
I'm glad I passed on it. Manager at my shop told me I'd like it, and I was like, nah, I'm not grabbing that.
Now, I not read Lock and Key. This says it's the artist and co-creator of Lock and Key. I've heard Lock and Key is a great title, but I don't know.
That as well, but I've never delved into it.
Yeah, and I mean, when I first got it, I was like, the story sounds interesting and it might have some hope. And then I'm like, well, the same person wrote and drew it, and I would say most of the time that ends up being a disaster, because people are either really good at writing or they're really good at art, and there's not a whole lot of creators out there that are good at both. So I don't know if that played into it. I don't know if he was both writer and artist on Lock and Key, but it didn't work for me.
Okay. I just talked about that, but I'll go ahead and jump into this one. Now, this is the first G.I. Joe book I have read in forever. I know this is This is not her first appearance, the female Snake Eyes. It was kind of interesting itself. They come on this murder scene at this amusement park, and the two detectives trying to figure out what's going on. They can't quite figure it out. This one guy shows up. I know how it was done. He's explaining everything on how it was done. Yeah, Yo Joe, Tom the comic book junkie, just jumped in here as well. And
What's up,
it was an interesting book. The other podcasts I listened to, not Lords of Long Box Crusade, they were doing, I think, some G.I. Joe stuff, or was it a different one? No, it was Long Box Crusade. They were talking about some older G.I. Joe books, which kind of got me like, you know what? I kind of like G.I. Joe. I played them a lot when I was a kid, so let's jump back in and kind of see what they're doing. This is actually still the same writer, Larry Hama, going back years. But it's an interesting book. I think I enjoyed it enough to pick up issue 2. This is very ninja heavy. I mean, if you're into the ninja stuff, there's a big twist at the end. You find out that maybe Snake Eyes isn't really dead. But it's a decent book, and I'll probably pick up the next one to kind of see where the storyline's going. So it's a stash for me. Mr. Gretzky said he loved it in the 80s. Do you have G.I. Joe #1 by chance, Mr. Gretzky? I've been trying to find that one on eBay. And I guess we'll go to jump into Drew. What's your next book?
Next, I'd like to talk about X-Men Blue #16. This is the Cross Time Capers #1. This is the time-displaced X-Men from the past. They are under the tutelage of Magneto. This has been one of the better titles from the Resurrection group of X-Men books. The art on this is not my favorite, but it is highly stylized, and I kind of dig it. It's nice and bright and colorful. You get a really nice sense of the team. They all have their own thing going on. Basically, Magneto is having these mind shivers, and the Professor X of the past is apparently looking for the time-displaced X-Men. So he has a time machine. He's getting ready to send them back. They go back to the time of the dinosaurs. They go back to the first appearance of Apocalypse, the wedding of Scott and Jean. This all pops in panel by panel. Again, like I said, bright and colorful, even if not my favorite style art. But the kick in this book is where it leaves off, because, spoiler alert, they end up 99. And I love the rendering of this X-Men 2099 team, which is exactly why I'm stashing this book. I can't wait to see the terrible, terrible 90s characters of 2099 show up in this story arc. So definitely a stash for me.
Are you picking up X-Men Red when that comes out in February? I believe that comes out.
I probably will be. I've only dropped one X-Men title since Resurrection, and that was Iceman. Just wasn't my thing. Too much drama, not enough superhero stuff. So I did ditch that.
I didn't think Iceman was anybody's thing.
Oh no! It's apparently selling. It's ongoing at this point, so it's selling enough copies for them to printing. I didn't like the first arc of Cable, but the new arc of Cable I'm enjoying, so I'm holding on to that for a little while. I like Gold. I like the characters. The stories haven't been that great, but the Omega Red stuff held on my attention. And I've been liking Jean Grey, which is way better than it has any right to be. I enjoyed that book, but it's pretty darn good.
A lot of people are going off in the chat talking about G.I. Joe toys, and Don says he stashes all the X books. Popcom's in here. He jumped as well. Funk Off. I'm not sure if I mentioned him earlier, but they're going. Chat's going pretty good.
When I was in high school, one of my friends there had every single Gen 1 Transformer still mint in box.
Jeez.
He still got him. He's sitting on a gold mine.
Blade H12 is in here as well. yeah, I look back at some of my toys I had when I was a kid, Master of the Universe, He-Man, and I look at them, a mitten box, like $300. I'm like, dude, man, Dad, why didn't you buy me 2 or 3 of those? I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I still have my Gen 1 Optimus Prime somewhere, but of course I don't have a box. I don't have any, he's all banged up, beat to shit because I played with him.
Yeah.
You guys
Okay.
had more fun, so.
More memories with them rather than setting them up on a box. I mean, I think that's what's hard for me. I tell you, do you have toys in your background or are those statues? True.
Toys.
And you take them out of the
Yeah,
box,
they're all
don't you?
toys. My Marvel Legends and my DC icons, I take them out and I display them. I save my boxes, so if I ever want to resell, I have my boxes for that, or if I want to trade, I have boxes for that. But mostly, I just collect and display. You see some of my XMen display has fallen down there. I got to get to that eventually. But
they had a battle, people are on the ground.
Yeah. I came home and inexplicably one of Angel's wings fell off and he decided to fall on the group. So that's what you get.
Okay, so what is your next book, Paul?
Next book for me is John Wick. I don't know. I really love John Wick, but this just didn't grab me like the movies does. The art and story just both were somewhat lacking. It's a shame because he's such an awesome character. And the only thing that I could think of while I was reading it, who wouldn't kill for a John Wick Punisher crossover? But other than that, it kind of sucked. So it's a blast.
Yeah, that's what we gotta kill.
I think John Wick has a little more of that martial art skills than what Punisher had. Punisher's more just a bruiser. So it seemed like if he got in close quarters, John Wick get him in an armbar, maybe. Not that I want the Punisher to get his ass kicked, but
I don't know. You see the Punisher, I think, up close, hand-to-hand combat. Frank would probably stick a knife in his throat real quick. I got John Bernthal in the battle between Punisher and John Wick.
Well, Keanu's got some years on him, no question. But he's not lacking in the hand-to-hand combat part with sticking things in people either.
Nah, you're right. But I don't know. I'm going to take the Punisher.
I might have to take Punisher. Just go ahead.
How about we put them together and have them fuck shit up together?
I'm pretty sure though, if the Punisher killed John Wick's dog, then John Wick might fuck him up. So.
He'd Hulk out. Just...
Yeah, you need the motivation though. It needs to be a dead puppy.
And it needs to be CGI dog poop he picks up.
That wasn't real dog poop?
Not in the first one, no. They were saying that was CGI'd in.
Better than a un-CGI'd mustache.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
That's true by a long shot. My next book, I've been picking this up. This is issue 14. This is one of those books I've been kind of teetering on the edge with sticking with. But every time it seemed like it grabs me a little bit. And that is Killer Bee Killed number 14 by Image Comics. The story here, I mean, he thought he was kind of done killing the mobsters, but he goes to go after the big boss, kills him, and thinks that's it. He's done. The demon, he won't see the demon anymore. And we come to find out that's not the truth. It's just kind of a, he's not a superhero. He's not driven because somebody got killed. He's driven because his demon is telling him that he needs to kill people. But the demon hasn't been as prevalent probably in the past almost 10 books. I mean, in the first few books, he was really pushing him to kill somebody, or he was going to, the demon was going to destroy him internally, basically. But this guy he's kind of like Punisher in a way. I mean, but he's a college student. The only thing I don't like about these covers are almost the same every freaking week. Orange background, white letters, him shooting or him posing with the sawed-off shotgun. I wish they'd change the covers up.
Same, literally every issue.
Luckily,
kind of the trademark of Brubaker and Phillips, though, they did the exact same thing on the fade out. Every single
because I think I have that whole series, and every one is similar.
Yeah, it's kind of one of their trademarks. They're not known for their covers.
Yeah. Luckily, I think this is supposed to be next week's cover. So different color palette, kind of nice to see something a little change, you know, because every week before it was on my pull list, I would just grab it off the shelf when I had the money. And I'm like, do I have that one? That cover looks the same as last time. But
Outcast kind of has the same problem too.
Yeah, Seeking Near Mint, regarding our previous conversation, he made a very good point. He said John Wick is Mr. Anderson from The Matrix. So if he needs something to fight the Punisher, he'll just jack in and learn that shit. Like he was like, I know Kung Fu.
But if you go that way, he was also, was it Ted? Which one was he, Bill and Ted? Whoa. You know, he was also...
In canon for those movies, they saved the universe.
Okay, we're going to go. Some stoner surfer dude's going to beat Punisher now.
All right. Now, let's think about that, though. John Bernthal.
And he was Johnny Utah.
Rick Grimes' wife, and he was going to let him totally live. And he's raising John Bernthal's baby right now. Come on. I mean, that's the man.
Coral.
Who taught Carl how to fish? It wasn't Rick.
Oh, man. That's a life lesson you need to learn from Daddy. And he didn't do it. See, they're talking in chat again. What's going on over there? Some stolen books. Thumbs up to the award-winning group of guys. Thank you, Don. They're talking about Killer Be Kill a little bit, but we'll go ahead and jump in. We have 11 watching right now. Punish the Wick, Funkoff says. And we'll go back to Drew on your next book.
Spider-Gwen, number 26. In this because I want to see where this Gwenum thing ends up. But not a lot happened in this book. I was not a huge fan of the story, and the art it's highly stylized, so you either love it or you hate it. I'm not much for it. So this is lightly stashed because I'm going to keep picking it up, but definitely not my favorite book, probably my turn of the week.
Paul, next book? Do you have one?
Paul, you're muted.
You're muted. What are you doing, Paul?
Well, wife's raiding in the background, so, I don't want her yelling too loud. Last book for me
You don't want to piss Paul's wife off. I know that. I have not met the woman, but I know you don't want to piss her off. I'm clear on the West Coast, and I'm afraid that I can never get it right. Chichula or what the hell ever is going to fly over and hit me.
Chancla.
That's what it is. Chancla. Thank you.
He's like,
don't ever piss.
Chancla is a flip-flop. It is the weapon of Puerto Rico.
Okay. All right.
Tell her she has to watch it to rewind to understand
it. Batman Creature of the Night is my last book. And it's an interesting take on making Batman jump out of the comics kind of into the real world. I'm not sure at this point if the Batman that this kid sees is real or if it's a manifestation in this kid's head of something he or someone else is doing. But it's really interesting, and I'm definitely going to give it another issue or two to see where they head with this. And come on, Batman in Boston, craziness. But it is nice to just get them out somewhere. It's very much pulling them into the real world. I mean, the kid's reading Batman comic books in the beginning of the comic, so it was really interesting. I'm definitely going to stash it and see where they go.
One thing I do like about this book, it's a square bound book, so you got I don't know how many pages. I don't think there are any ads throughout the whole book. And it's $6. I mean, that's for me, that's a good deal to get a comic. $6, probably 48 pages, no ads. That's really good. And like Paul said, it's real world. He's reading Batman comics throughout the whole book. He has Batman Bull. He's trying to relate everything to Batman. His uncle, what's his uncle name? He calls him Uncle Alfred. Alton Frederick, Alfred. So, he's trying to make all these connections to the Batman world in the comics. To give a little bit away, just like in the comics, his parents get killed. When he wakes up, it's Officer Gordon, but that's his first name. So he's trying to make all these connections to this Batman universe he possibly can, and try to make it seem like he is Bruce Wayne. I think my favorite parts are where the Batman shows up, or whatever that is right there. Those were the most exciting parts, I thought. When I first started reading it, I'm like, oh god, this is going to be tough. I really thought it was going to be tough to read just because of the font, who's talking where, you know. But, you know, it was a fairly good book. I enjoyed it a lot. I think there are three in total for this one. And I'll be picking up both other ones, too, as well. So it's a stash for me. And back to Drew.
I'm surprised I missed that one. I didn't even see it on the shelves of my LCS. Didn't make my pull list, so maybe have to go back and pick that one up and see what that's all about. Yeah, one more book I kind of wanted to talk about was Darkhawk. This was a one-shot, a Marvel Legacy version of Darkhawk, and I couldn't get through this. It was, I mean, the DNA cover right there on the front here is kind of pretty to look at, but it really tells you all you need to know about this book. It is definitely not your classic Darkhawk story, and the art is best. But the story just didn't grab me at all. I didn't care about Darkhawk before, and this didn't help me care about him now. So this is a blast.
Are all the panels that way? Not they're kind of
they're all scattered. Like I mean, some of them are fairly normal. This page right here is fairly normal. It's fairly normal, but there's like they try these dynamic panel layouts.
Mm-hmm.
And to try to make this boring book more interesting. There was one really neat looking panel, this one right here with the transformation, but I mean, it's a boring story that looks like it should be interesting, and it's just not. I don't care about this at all.
Thank you, Drew, because I didn't get to any Marvel books this week because I was hoping to get to at least Venom because it had Venom and Kraven on it. But because of after Batman, I
saw that cover. I thought it looked really nice, but I didn't pick that up either. I haven't been reading Venom.
But because of that, you've given the opportunity to say, fuck Marvel. Because I know everybody wants me to say it at least once.
So in the chat, even Grandpa says, I love Darkhawk, but that book was pointless. That was just a one-shot, correct, Drew?
Yeah, it's just a one-shot. Just like the Silver Sable and the Power Pack, both of which I was underwhelmed with. Yeah, I don't really know why they're doing those. Kind of just testing the waters, I guess, to see what people might be interested in. But
and
not
granted, there's if you find the right creative team, you could do that. I mean, like I don't know who I was talking with about this before, but for years and years, First Appearance of Deadpool was a dollar bin book. It wasn't not the right creative team that had him break the fourth wall and just made the character. I actually respect that and like that they're trying to take lesser characters and making them, testing out the waters and seeing if they can make them work. But it's lightning in a bottle. You got to hit it at the right time with the right creative team, and then boom, it becomes a huge ass character. So I mean, I think they are just kind of throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, but with the quality of most of the artists and writers at Marvel these days, you're really looking at lightning in a bottle. I mean, you really got to get the right combination, and I don't know if it's there right now.
I mean, I'll give the artist of Darkhawk this. He tried.
Yeah, the art.
Those panel layouts are unique. The art to me was, passable. Not quite what I was looking for, but the story itself just I didn't care, and it is what it is.
You had no more books this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there were a couple more I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to Venom and a couple couple other DC books, and maybe I think there's a new Star Trek book, but I just it was a shitty week, and after reading Batman, I said this is the best book I'm going to read this week, so why bother?
Oh, that was a bing. That was a yes. You're correct. I don't know where that come from. You ever hear that bing noise? Or did that come from my computer?
I think that came from your patchouli dreams there.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did. Well, I better not do a restart right now on my computer. So
is that what it was popping up saying you had to restart?
Yeah, pick a time, 7:52. No, thank you. Close that out. That'd suck. My last book I did read, and this is another one of the books I'm teetering on dropping. I may pick up issue 10 and be done with it after that, and that is Black Magic by Nicholas Scott and Greg Rucka. I love Nicholas Scott's art. I think she does a really good job. She's very heavy outline, kind of almost like an Adam Hughes kind of style, a little bit. This one, again, of course, all comic books are supposed to try to catch you at that end to try to make you pick up the next issue, and that's what this one did. The whole thing is they're under investigation because he ended up shooting a guy because he got scared because he saw the main character, and she's under investigation, and it kind of declared out. And the other people know who she's a witch are starting to sneak, move in on her to try to expose her, essentially, or kill her. But I think after issue 10, I'm going to drop it, and I'm not going to be picking up this one anymore. So, any last-minute books? I know you said you want to touch bases on that one. Drew, any other ones you just want to quickly say you read? Yeah or nay?
Yeah, I picked up 2 other books. USA Avengers number 12. I didn't get a chance to read that yet, but I like that team and what Al Ewing's doing on that. It's kind of stupid, but I'm going to keep reading that, I'm sure. And I picked up Jean Grey. This is number 9. This book has been better than it has any right to be. I know I said that earlier. It's kind of Jean Grey going through all of the psychics, of the big name psychics in the XMen universe, and spending some time with them and trying to come to grips with what she feels is the impending Phoenix Force. And this book ends with the arrival of the Phoenix Force. Hope Summers is there. The ghost of the original Jean Grey is there. I'm sure that's how Resurrection is going to happen. So I'm excited to keep up on this and see where it goes. You get some Quentin Quire in there, and I'm a sucker for a good quip from Quentin Quire. He shows up and shoots Jean in the head while she's having some psychic seizure with his psychic revolver, and it's pretty badass. So I'm going to keep reading this. I think this is going to lead into Resurrection and X-Men Red, and we'll see where all goes. I know, fuck Marvel for the most part with this panel, but I think this Jean Grey stuff is exciting.
Well, I mean, you're speaking so highly of it. I actually want to pick it up now. I mean, and I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from when I say the reason I'm so critical of Marvel is I was such a huge fan growing up, and I don't think most of their stuff lives up to it now. But some of their stuff last year, my pick of the year for a series was the Unworthy Thor books. I thought those were brilliant. I mean, Marvel knows how to put together a great book. The problem is trying to find them in the pile of crap that they put out.
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit more forgiving with a slow story arc because I kind of want to see where things go overall, especially with some of this Resurrection stuff. It all leads to Jean coming back, and it leads to more Phoenix stuff in the future, and I kind of dig that stuff.
I can deal with slow story arcs. Lately, I think with Marvel is when I say, and this is still the case. I'm still a story first guy, and some of their stories are great. But lately, some of their art is so bad that it takes me out of the story, and that just drives me nuts.
One example of that is I really love the Generation X title that's coming out right now. and it is absolutely hideous. It is probably the ugliest book on shelves, but because I dig the characters, I kind of put up with it. I want to see more from Chamber and Jubilee as teachers. I like the Quentin Quire character, the iBoy stuff, the Edie stuff. So, some of that, the character drama from the characters from Wolverine and the X-Men lives on in that book, and I dig that. But the art is ungodly terrible. It's like, Jesus, get somebody on this that can freaking draw. But you know, a lot of it is really, really ugly stuff.
The other thing that really gets me lately is every time a book gets a new creative team, well, we've got to reinvent this character and make it ours. No, you don't. You don't. Look at this. People took characters throughout the 70s and the 80s without reinventing them. They took what came before. They still made the character theirs, but they didn't just like totally reinvent the character. And that just, and now since it seems like every Marvel title reboots after 4 issues, I mean, I get so confused about what the fuck is going on about, well, is this, you know, character A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, you know, it's like,
I would say give the legacy renumbering a bit of a chance to work its magic.
Oh, I'm hoping it does.
A lot of these stories, since they go back to #1 after 12 issues, they're just seasons, and some of them are the same creative teams, and it's kind of detrimental to their growth to renumber, but it was beneficial to Marvel sales because you know, Squirrel Girl started to dip in sales. They relaunched with a #1 and the same creative team, and the sales jumped up. So there's no arguing with that as a business practice. You know, if you're gonna sell more books, if you just put a #1 on them, put the #1 on them. You know, it doesn't mean that, you know, it was a great choice editorially, but business wise, definitely. I mean, but
I don't want to put this all on Marvel. DC is guilty of the whole put a new creative team on it and they got to reinvent them too. Right. But it does seem like Marvel does the you know, like you say, the seasons, you know, it's more frequent that they're changing creative teams and people just, DC, the thing that drives me nuts about DC is this bullshit they pull where you read a book and it's got 8 different artists. I mean, you go from page to page and it's a completely different art style. And I'm like, who the fuck thought this was a good idea?
Right. I kind of dig that in some of the bigger like event books. Right now, Invincible Iron Man is doing that. But Bendis was writing both Iron Man titles. Now there's only one Iron Man title, and the Doctor Doom side of the story has a different artist than the Riri Williams side of the story, and it's kind of cool that it's like different art styles when you flip back and forth scene to scene, but like when it's the same scene and it switches artists mid panel, it's just like what
yeah, that's when it kills me. I can totally get it, and it totally does work where you're like in this area, you know, with these characters, and then you switch to this storyline and it switches artists. But with some of the DC ones, it's literally like you go to I've flipped the page before and I've been like, is this a misprint? You know, because it just doesn't flow.
Right.
So quick question, Jim Shooter recently was interviewed talking about the future Marvel and kind of the state it's in now. Do you think if like Jim Shooter came back, would it totally disrupt everything? Would you lose a lot of fans, or you think you'd get more fans back for Marvel?
I think stronger editorial in any sense is going to help whatever publisher you're talking about. I think that the reason why DC is right now is because Jim Lee saw what happened when they moved their studio and decided to launch DCU. And that was absolutely garbage. And it didn't work. And they fell flat on their face. And he stepped up and said, okay, we need editors that are going to take control. He is kind of ruling DC with iron fist. He gives Jeff Johns a chance to do what he wants to do in his different realms. He gives Tomasi and Jurgens pretty much free reign over Superman, but everybody's reined in. Everybody is on the same page and heading in the same direction. Whether or not they know what that direction is or not, I kind of have my doubts, but that's what makes Rebirth so strong, is the fact that everybody is headed in the same direction with the same editorial vision. I think the issue with Marvel is that are taking control of the situation. So your heavy hitters like Bendis were doing whatever the hell they wanted. Jason Aaron is pretty much running his own show on the Thor book. Like, he's doing his own thing. It doesn't really interfere with anything else, but he's doing his own thing.
Right.
All these other creators are creating their own characters because they see that that's the way to cash in on the future. And nobody's there to say, hey, we've had 14 new characters in the last month, and maybe slow it down and don't do that. I don't think that means that the books are any less efficient at telling their stories. And I think that a lot of them are telling really great stories, but Marvel overall does not have a creative vision. And I think Legacy is kind of smoke and mirrors to that. There's still no creative vision from the top down. And I think that Jim Shooter, or you bring in anybody who has a strong presence as an editor, and they're gonna write that ship right away.
I've been basically reading comics and collecting comics for the entirety of Shooter's career, particularly on the editorial level. And wherever Jim Shooter goes, he's been good for sales because he knows how to give the fans what they want. He's very big on creator rights. He instituted a lot of things at Marvel that were great for the creators. But at the same time, Jim Shooter is very hard to work for because Jim Shooter is a very demanding boss. He, like, when he first took over at Marvel, like he said, everything was not on time. They would come out with a book, and then the next book would be 6 months later. He expects everything on time. And if you don't do it, you're going to be off the book. And I've heard this from a number of creators that he's fair, but he is very hard to work for. And I think that's kind of what Marvel needs at this point. They need someone like Kevin Feige over the movie universe who is overseeing everything and says, you can do this, you can't do this, you can't, this is going to interfere with this. And there's everybody's just like, it's kind of the Wild West right now. But I mean, the fact that, this is the man who gave us Secret Wars. Come on. It's great stuff.
Do you think him moving in would be too much of I mean, everybody complains that the Marvel creators are very left-leaning, with a lot of their content. Now, I don't know where Shooter sits in politically, but do you
certainly
think
not as left-leaning?
Do you think, though, him coming in, is it, if for I mean, it's not reality, but if he were to come in, would that be too much of a stark contrast of what they're doing now, and would it just destroy Marvel? Or do you think that I think you kind of touched a little bit, that'd be probably the best direction for them to go, get somebody like that?
Look, there would, I think, more disruptive would be his fact that you got to get your shit in on time. Look, it was Civil War II. We had books taking place after Civil War coming out halfway through the series because the shit was so far behind.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, that's not a good way to run a business. On a business level, that's bad. And everybody, I noticed everybody in the community talk about, well, this, we're on like issue 4 of Civil War II, and everybody's like, well, this happens after it, and it's out now. What the hell's going on here?
I think they rated the ship on that a lot with the Secret Empire, because there's a lot of the Generation stuff was coming out before Secret Empire was over, but we didn't know what any of that was, not until Secret Empire finished, and then they went into the Legacy. I think that was kind of a step in the right direction. I think the fact that they're not doing any events, like big events, for the next couple of years gives them an opportunity to kind of plot out where those things are going to fall. And I think that when that all finally comes down, we will get the return of the Fantastic Four, and that's what Legacy will end up being about in 2 years when they finally do that big event they're talking about. Some of that, the political stuff, I think that, they need to rein some of it in because it's too prevalent. I'm a liberal guy, and I don't disagree with a lot of what people would consider, social justice warrior nonsense. But I do think that there's a time and a place for it, and that time and that place certainly isn't in the middle of Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock. You know, it should be, you know, in a side panel or a theme within a story arc. You can do things that way. You know, the old Denny O'Neil Green Arrow, Green Lantern stuff with the with, you know, all of that political stuff was done within the confines of story. And I think that a stronger editor would give them more of an opportunity to kind of rein that stuff in. But more so, I think that it will help them streamline. You know, I think that these editors are putting out more books because more books sold equals more sales. You know, if all of your books are selling like shit, but you're selling a lot of them, you know, they have a larger market share than DC. When you look at the sales charts, DC is killing them week after week after week with Batman, with Superman, with Action Comics, with Detective Comics, with these bi-weekly titles. They're killing them in sales monthly. But Marvel stays on top because, you know, maybe only 10,000 people buy Squirrel Girl, and maybe only 10,000 people buy, you know, what was the other one? Patsy Walker Hellcat. But that's 20,000 more books sold because DC's not selling as many different titles. So
Right.
I think these editors are taking it upon themselves to kind of spread out things to keep their market share when that's not the best way to build a universe that these comics should be taking place in. I think when you look at the top tier titles of Marvel, you're not having those issues, but the issues people have with Marvel is like, it's always another book. It's always a Deadpool the Duck. It's always, you know, a Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider. Like, anybody needs that book. Like, it's always, you know, 13 different Black Panther titles when the main title isn't even selling that well. Those are the things that people look down on Marvel for. And I think that if they got a stronger head of the table, those kind of things wouldn't happen, and we'd be able to focus on the betterment of fewer titles, as opposed to, you know, let's throw as much out there as possible. Let's flood the market.
Yeah, quality over quantity kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the touching on the political thing, you know, creators being liberal is nothing new. I mean, artistic people tend to be liberal in general, and, you know,
Right.
Unlike you, I'm more on the conservative side of things. I do have, you know, I'm kind of moderate, but I would say I'm probably more on the conservative side of things. And, you know, the books I read in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s, there was still a lot of liberal undertones in there, and it was used as part of the story, but it was subtle, and it was just, you know, it was woven in, and some of them were freaking brilliant. Now it's like they figure every single book has to beat you over the head with it, and it's just like, you know, it just doesn't work. I mean, weave it into the story, make it work, you know, and don't try to shove it down my throat, you know?
Yeah, I think with Stan Lee, you know, even with the X-Men, there's, you know, he was very subtle about that, you know, acceptance of people who are different to you, but it wasn't like cramped. It was like, oh, okay, I see how that connects with today's climate, you know, political climate and everything that's going on. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't crammed down your throat. It was kind of like, wow, I see that connection that he's having with the real world. So, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
there was the Captain America storyline, and where I think it was the early '80s, where I don't know whether it was Hydra or Serpent Society or whatever, but basically it ended with one issue where basically insinuating that the president at the time who was supposed to be Nixon was part of this, and, you know, it was like, they never showed it on panel or anything because the president committed suicide or whatever. But I mean, you know, it was very clear where they were going with it, but it was part of the story. It was, you know, and it just worked for that one.
Next kind of question I have, since we don't really have much Funko news, I don't think we have any. I have one little piece I want to talk about, but and no really movie news other than talking about the Avengers. So Bendis actually has jumped ship to go to DC. Wasn't there another Marvel writer moving over as well? And what do you think that has to do with the future of Marvel? Do you think Marvel's a sinking ship? That's why those people are jumping over. Whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Well, I think I think it's clear that it certainly is making people think. They're like, what's going on at Marvel? I mean, these are some big names that are going over to DC, and I don't think it's all about money. I think it has a lot more to do with some creative freedom, and I think it has a lot to do with just I don't know. I don't know personally any of the current creators at Marvel, but I think there's just a general dissatisfaction with some of the things there. I mean, I think the creators, for one, I know they're getting hammered on Twitter constantly by fans, and I know that's got a grade on them, but I don't know. I think right now, and I've said this, I think right now Marvel and, well, let's say Disney, because they're the parent, I think they're far more focused on the movie business side of things than they are on the comic side of things. And I've said this too. I've said, sure, you may sell 10,000 copies of that Spider-Man, but then you come out with an Avengers movie that makes $1 billion fucking dollars. Where are you going to pay attention? And this is just pure speculation on my part. I think some of the creators think that Disney in general is more interested in the movie side of things than the comic side of things.
Which is very much Stan Lee oriented back in 70s when Stan moved out to the West Coast to really start the TV show and movie side of Marvel, which he was never really successful with.
Yep.
What about you, Drew? What do you think about that? Like Bendis leaving?
As far as who else might be leaving, my thought on that is Dan Slott. I think Dan Slott is not much more for the Marvel Universe. They canceled his Silver Surfer book, which is a shame because it's the best book that he was working on, mainly because the Mike Allred art was absolutely phenomenal. But he's writing Spider-Man right now, and I think they're going to take him off of Spider-Man. I think that his Spider-Man's kind of run its course. He's been writing him for forever, ever since Big Time. He's been the most consistent writer on Amazing Spider-Man, and I think that they're getting tired of that, and I think that he's going to be leaving and going to DC very soon. If you read his Twitter, he's been putting Michael Bendis on all of his happy news, and honestly, I don't think it's that big a loss. I think a lot of these guys are leaving Marvel because they're dissatisfied currently. This happened in the 90s, and that's where we got Image from. And everybody, with the exception of Todd McFarlane that left for Image, has come back and worked for Marvel at some point. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. They have a giant parent company. They can afford to lose money on comics and keep up their end of the business. I think that Marvel has always been the house of ideas, and it will continue to cultivate new talent. You're seeing talent going over and working for DC, and most of this DC talent, even their editor-in-chief, cut his teeth at Marvel. They wouldn't be anything without Marvel. There'd be no Image Comics. Those guys left to form Image Comics because they made their name at Marvel. It the biggest market share in the comics industry right now. And if by some chance Marvel goes under, say goodbye to all your Batman and Superman books too, because Warner Brothers is not going to keep publishing DC Comics. They're going to see it as a sign of the times, and they're just going to cut bait. That would be detrimental for the industry, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think Marvel's here to stay. I think there are peaks and valleys in every publisher. And I think that right now we're seeing a little bit of a valley comics, and that only means that the sun's going to just shine brighter more on the other side of the mountain. So I think be patient with it, or come back in a couple of years if you're not satisfied with it now, because it's all cyclical, and that's what happens. One's up, one's down. If you look at the original Marvel now and the end of New 52, where we got Convergence and DCU, nobody would have ever thought that DC Comics has a chance to rise in sales the way they did with Rebirth. So, I mean, just, it is what it is. Careers go different places.
Anywhere.
different places. I'm not worried about it at all. And I think that some of the new creators that they have right now, Matthew Rosenberg is an incredible writer. Jason Aaron, I think that he's going to end up getting the Avengers after this No Surrender arc, and we get more into what Legacy is. I think that he's going to get a big chance to shine. I think that he's going to be doing great things with Wolverine at very, very soon. And I think that Donny Cates signing on is a big boom for Marvel. He's doing Thanos and he's doing Doctor Strange, and that guy released 3 of the best indie titles that came out last year. So they've got some good talent there, and I think that they're going to ride those guys hard and put them away wet. But we're going to get some good books out of it.
I think Cates is a brilliant choice for Doctor Strange. I think
good. I really like his first issue with Thanos too.
Yeah.
Well, I know you read the book. I actually listened to the book on tape. That was a history of Marvel, and what Drew was talking about, the peaks and valleys of the company throughout time. And that, I was amazed of how many times they had dropped down so low, because stuff wasn't selling. All of a sudden to rise back up and be popular again and drop again, rise again. So I do believe the same thing. It's going to have that peaks and valleys.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, DC is responsible for the continued existence of Marvel because, and this, I don't remember how much they went into this in the book, but there was at one point that Martin Goodman, when he was running Marvel, got the brilliant idea of creating his own distribution company to distribute all of Marvel's books, and about a year into it or so, the company collapsed, and basically DC distributed Marvel's books, and that kept the company afloat. DC limited them to, I think they could only come out with 8 titles a month for a while, and it if it wasn't for DC, Marvel would be gone before the Silver Age, because this was right before all the stuff with Fantastic Four and Amazing Fantasy 15. This was when they were doing the pre-hero stuff, like the early Strange Tales and stuff like that.
Okay, so I don't think we really have any more comic-related stuff that we're going to talk about. I did have one thing that I was going to mention, talking about Funkos. I don't have any new ones to show this week. Maybe you guys might have something to show. The one story I do have is, so I think I have about 70 Funko Pops. We all want our collectibles to go up in value and all that stuff. And I look at mine, I'm like, oh,
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, $30. I think that's the highest one I have, and that's like the Hulkbuster. I bought that from Jeremy. I think I have the Enchantress. That's $25-$30. And so I'm going on Amazon, trying to find ideas for my wife for Christmas. Pop in Outlander. She's a huge Outlander fan. A couple years ago, I bought her. Let's see, I don't even know their names. Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall, the 2 main characters from Outlander. I bought those for her for Christmas. This is a character she likes. I pop in there, freaking Jamie Fraser is going for $277 freaking dollars on Amazon, and Claire Randall's going for $70. I'm like, what the freaking hell, man? I buy all these collectibles and not worth crap, and I buy her 2 that I think they're going to be mass produced and not worth anything, or worth half of my collection of freaking Funko Pops. It's just amazing.
It's because of the sex scene this season.
I think that's the case. It is. 200. Oh my God! Seriously, for a freaking Jamie Fraser Funko Pop, outrageous.
Has it been vaulted even, or is it?
I don't know. I thought, what the hell, dude? I think I bought those at Barnes & Noble. I'm going to go to Barnes & Noble soon and find me a couple more and flip them and maybe make some money for Christmas.
Oh, did you get those Jamie Fraser Pops?
I bought one for my wife, and I bought her Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall for Christmas a couple years ago, or last year. And now
my ex is real into that show, and I was looking for that for her. I actually talked to a couple dealers. The deal with that is nobody ordered those Pops at all because nobody knew what the hell Outlander was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because
nobody pre-ordered them. The production run on those is super slim.
Yep. It doesn't say vaulted on Pop Price Guide, but I would suspect it was.
Yeah, they're done. They're done making those. That's over.
I mean, price on Pop Price Cat, it's $160 for Jamie, but it's going for $270 plus on Amazon.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was 160 before that sex scene.
Before that sex scene, is that what it was?
I don't watch that show. I saw one
I've
episode
watched.
and I was like, no thanks, not for me.
I've watched about half of the first season because it's Scottish and I'm Scottish, so I feel obligated to watch it. But my wife's up to date on it, and I know on BuzzFeed they went nuts when the episode with the sex scene this season came out because everybody was like,
oh, this season the newest sex scene, so not even one from the first.
No, this is the new one. That's why Pop Price Guide is behind because.
Okay. So real quick, do you have any collectibles or anything you picked up this week, Paul?
No, I worked this week. It was a shitty ass week at work, and that's what I did.
How about you, Drew? Do you have anything you want to share? Any collectibles that you picked up?
One pop. I picked up Scary Terry from Rick and Morty. He's a fantastic rendition of Freddy Krueger with testicles for a chin, and he's pretty awesome. If you guys don't watch the show, you won't know about him, but he was like in the third episode, and he tells them that they can run, but they can't hide, bitch. And they figured out they can actually just hide from him. Not that scary when you get down to it. But I saw this in the store, and I just had to have it, so I picked that up. Also, when I was Black Friday shopping for my daughter, she is into pops, and I went to a local spot to find some pops, and didn't really find too much for her, but they did have a bunch of DC icons, just about $15 a figure. So I picked up Aquaman and Firestorm, as well as the John Stewart Green Lantern and this really sick Joker. Hold on a second.
Don't fall. Don't fall over.
So for the
Joker,
for the DC, that's the icons line. And is it the
they're actually discontinuing this line, so
and the Marvel Legends line as well. Is $15 a good price for both of those lines, you think? Because I've seen some of them that low, and I'm like,
it's a good price for icon.
Legends
is a little bit different. There's a lot of peg warmers on the Legends side of things, and you can get those at Ross for like $4 eventually at some point. Sometimes when they come into the comic shop, they're like $25-30 a pop. But like if you buy them off of like Entertainment Earth by the case, you're looking at $20 a figure. Yeah, $20 a figure is probably the good price on those. Sometimes they're in Target for like 22. Sometimes they're there for like 18. So
I mean,
$20 is a good price on the Legends.
I haven't found a source yet. Like when I go to Walgreens and GameStop or whatever, I'm there on my phone going to Pop Price Guide, and I'm like, they want $10 for this. This shit's only worth $4, or they want $5 for this one because they're trying to get rid of it and it's worth $20. I think I'll pick up $4.
Right. I just picked up the Back in Black Deadpool as well from the miniseries last year. It's a Venomized Deadpool legend. He's a GameStop exclusive, kind of hard to come by. He's pretty badass, and he comes with this really sweet looking package that is themed the same as the
I think Mike picked that up, which shared that on Facebook. Didn't he recently?
I think he did.
Mike just shared that it's going to be in his haul video. I don't know if it's come out yet, but as well, it's a really cool figure.
There's a local store here. I'm sure every town has one. They buy wholesale from these other stores. They're clearance stuff. They had a Captain America Legend series for like $8.
Is it the one on the card, like the old school?
No, he's in a box.
Okay.
And I want to pick him up. So I like Captain America, but his face was so freaking ugly. He was scowling. I want like the John Byrne smiling Captain America. I don't want the scowling Captain America.
Right. They have a couple of good versions.
Just as long as you don't get the Liefeld with the chest out to here version.
Yeah.
I don't know if they make those molds.
I Thanks for stopping by, Seeking Nearment, because he says he's got to go have dinner now.
He's in Hawaii. He's gonna have some spam probably.
No, he's gonna have. If he's not having Loco Moco, he needs to just stop and go get some Loco Moco.
One other thing I wanted to briefly touch on tonight was of course, Marvel is now trolling DC again. Like, hey, Justice League just came out and it kind of sucked. Guess what we have coming out? Avengers. I'm sure you guys watched all the history of film. Yeah, the trailer is freaking amazing. I don't want to show it here. Some other channels have already showed it, and I'm sure it's already been viewed millions of times on YouTube already. What was your take on the trailer? Start with you, Drew.
Me?
Yeah, you go ahead, Drew.
Okay, cut out though there for me for a little second there. I thought that the trailer was absolutely perfect. I support anyone who would like to join my group. We are all suffering from Thanos-induced erections. If you would like to sit down and talk about that, I'm here for you. I'm right there with you. I think that this is the most anticipated movie not named Star Wars in the history of film. And I think that it's just been 10 years building up, and we're going to get some really great stuff in Wakanda. We see that. We're going to get some great stuff with Doctor Strange. We see that. We see the spider sense is finally a factor for Peter Parker. We see that he's going to be the Iron Spider. We see that Hulk is going to fall through Sanctum Sanctorum, much like the Silver Surfer did in the comic. I think that absolutely perfect. I think that a lot of people have said, that Thanos looks like bad CG. I don't know what trailer you saw. I saw it in 4K on my TV, right off of YouTube, and amazing. I think that he looks absolutely brutal, and in my opinion, this is just the answer I needed. To every single one of these characters that we've grown to love is going to die at Thanos' hand. He's going to beat them to death with his bare hand and one hand with an infinity gauntlet on it. But he's going to kill them all, and then maybe they'll come back in the next one. But that this is going to be the epic conclusion for a lot of the Marvel Universe, and I think that the rest of Phase 4 is just going to be spent cleaning this up.
Paul, you got anything on that?
I love the trailer. I thought, don't kill me, Drew. I thought Thanos looked better in some of the earlier stuff, but I understand them wanting to make him look more like Josh Brolin too. But on some level, I saw a thing today that made me laugh my ass off, and it showed the Thanos picture, and then right next to it, it showed the Success Kid meme with the kid going like this, and they're like, the Success Kid is all grown up, because he's just holding up his fist like,
that baby meme.
Yeah. But I thought it was the trailer was brilliant. I mean, when they showed Peter Parker and then they showed his hair go, I'm like, that was me watching the trailer.
As you said there, Drew, at the beginning, you said that the Thanos Erection Club, or however you put it, I think if Mike were here, he would say, not only am I the president, I'm also a member, because he's a huge Thanos fan as well.
I am too. It's just I thought he looked better before. That's all.
I saw some comparisons.
He'll put the helmet on eventually.
I saw some comparisons between Steppenwolf and Thanos, the little side-by-side thing, and talking about the CGI. And like, oh my God, seriously? I mean, you can't even compare those two, unfortunately. They could have done so much more with Steppenwolf, I think, and Justice League, and it was just horrible. And this Marvel movie is gonna.
They couldn't remove a mustache.
They did. They removed a mustache, but it looked horrible. I was talking to a coworker about that. She goes, I was watching that, and his upper lip looked really weird. And then I explained to her what they had done. She's like, oh, I didn't know that. So, but I'm looking forward to it. That comes out. Doesn't it come out this summer? Is that correct?
This
May.
spring. Free comic book day.
Because we have what's coming up here. We have Star Wars coming up in December. Then what else after that? Big ones.
Black Panthers before.
Black Panthers in February.
Because I'm kind of on the fence with Black Panther. I'm not sure yet.
Go see that movie. It will blow your mind.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Did you like Thor Ragnarok? I mean,
Yeah.
What Thor Ragnarok did for space, Black Panther is going to do for Wakanda. Wakanda is one of the coolest settings in Marvel Comics. And the fact that they're doing this futuristic city hidden in the jungle with spaceships and all that kind of nonsense, I'm all in on Black Panther. I know a lot of people aren't feeling it, but I think that Claw is going to be a big part of this movie. I have a feeling that this movie is going to people away. The previews look amazing so far. I think that it looks like there's finally a core of villains coming after one hero in this story, and that to me looks like a little bit of a different take. And I'm excited for Black Panther. I'm not a huge fan of the Black Panther character in the comics, but that movie trailer gets me hyped every time I see it.
What were we going to say, Paul?
Oh, I was going to say also, we know I'm a huge Winter Soldier fan, and we know he's there.
Right, but he doesn't appear in the movie apparently, so he's on ice.
That's what I was just going to sit there. I was just going to see. I mean, which is shocking because, when all the movies came, everybody was talking about all the movie deals, and I think the fact that he doesn't show up in the movie even shows you more. Sebastian Stan signed a 9-picture deal.
Yeah. So,
I mean, obviously they have big plans for him, whether he's going to be Captain America 2.0 after. But now Chris Evans has said, he said, I only had the 6-picture deal and I want to get more into directing. But he said, but I'm willing to talk with Marvel about anything they want to do with Captain America. So
I think that part of this movie is going to be a flashback, because the one scene you see Claw and he has both of his arms, and we all know he lost his arms in one of his arms in Age of Ultron. So I think that part of this movie is going to be a flashback. I think it's going to tell a larger scope story about T'Challa and his history as the Black Panther. And I think they're going to go into a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm excited to see it. So,
and seriously, that fucking cast.
Right? If you'd have told me last year before I saw that first trailer that I was going to be hyped for Black Panther, I'd have told you were wrong. I would have been like, no, I'll see it. It's going to be like Ant-Man. Like I wasn't hyped for Ant-Man before it came out. I went and saw it because it was a Marvel movie. I really enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't have super expectations for Ant-Man, and I wouldn't have had super expectations for Black Panther until I saw that trailer, and now I'm expecting the world out of that movie. I think it's going to be great.
I'll tell you what, my expectations for Ant-Man and the Wasp are much higher than they were for Ant-Man.
Right? I think that's going to be pretty good too.
Okay, so I think we're probably going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're almost an hour and a half in. So usually before we end the show, do you have any last-minute things or shout-outs you like to do, Drew?
Yeah, just shout out to the chat. Don the Comic Book Junkie was in tonight. That was pretty awesome. Saw Tito from Kingdom's Comics in there. Seeking Earman in there as well. So shout out to the whole chat. And I'll catch you guys next week when I'm on the chat.
Hey, Paul, how about you?
Again, like I do every week, thank the chat. You guys are the reason we do this online. And thank Drew for popping in and helping us out today.
Last minute.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely lowered the creepy uncle quotient. And
I've got nieces and nephews. I'm creepy too.
And I gotta shout out my boy Mikey Babinski for doing the most freaking amazing sketch cover I've ever seen for me.
Yeah, that thing's insane.
Yeah.
Shout out to him as well from me, because I got to see him do that time-lapse sketch online. That was pretty cool.
And of course, we always miss Mike on here, Mike Spectacular Spider Grandpa. Although I think we might be off a couple of watch lists with him not on this episode this week. So next week we'll back on a couple.
I think it may be a good thing in this current environment of every single person in the world getting fired for sexual harassment.
No. He's sexually harassed me in off airs a couple times. He's made
the Matt Lauer blaster station.
He is. He's made some propositions to me that were kind of a little bit over the edge. So I do have a couple shout outs.
Little bit.
Is that what happened to Trinity? He got touched by Uncle Mikey?
Maybe you misunderstood some of what he said. There wasn't anything subtle or close to the edge about any of them.
I don't think Mike has a subtle side. It's always out there. The Blasted Statue channel has a couple new subs, Jenna Towns and Hazel Dan 1216. My personal channel got a couple new more too, a couple new ones. Ron the Future, he does some comic book, and if you're into old cars, old model cars, some of that, he does some reviews on those, as well as Matt Comic 17. So we're going and wrap this episode up. Make sure you come check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, all that good stuff, all that social media. And we want to thank Drew for coming in last minute, jumping in. It's been great having another person to bounce off of. So whether you blasted or whether you statue, guys, we will see you next week. And remember, January 5th, we are going to have our Blasties, the second annual Blasties, where we look at the books over the year. We pick our top books, artists, writers, books, and come check us out then. So later, guys.